Good afternoon, I'm Tanil and this is an IELTS test simulation. Could you tell me your full name, please?
Hi, my name's Anthony Lucas.
What should I call you?
Anthony.
In this first part of the speaking test, I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself. 1. Questions about family. Do you have a large or small family?
I have a pretty large family.
Could you tell me something about them?
Absolutely. So I'm one of 5 children. I've got a mum and a dad, 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and we grew up in regional Victoria on a farm. Traditionally, we would spend a lot of time together as a family. We would pretty much do everything together, from going to dinners, to parties, to family celebrations. That's the way I grew up.
How much time do you manage to spend with members of your family?
Well, at the moment, I actually have moved into the city, so I don't spend a lot of time as I once did. Previously, as I lived with them, I would be spending every single day with them, as tiring as that can get. But now I just spend probably once a fortnight and go down to visit them, as they still live in regional Victoria.
What sorts of things do you like to do together?
I love to go to the beach with my family, as well as that shopping is a favourite in my household. We love to shop, whether that is when they come and visit me here in the city or I go down to their local shopping centres. We love to go shopping together. As well as that, visiting the movies and watching a good movie at the cinemas is definitely something that we really, really enjoy as a family.
Do you get on well with members of your family?
Yeah, absolutely. I do get along well with every single member of my family, and that's something that I hold close to my heart, which is the great relationships that I have with every member of my family.
2. Questions about festivals. Tell me about the most important festival in your country.
The most important festival in my country, and especially in my local town, was a tomato festival that they held annually. That was important to me as I am Italian in my background. That allowed us to, spend time with the community. The community would engage with us, and we would share what the tomato brings to the community.
What special food and activities are connected with that festival?
Yeah, absolutely. Pasta is the biggest number one food that's connected to that festival, because pasta is actually made out of the tomato sauce. And the activity side of things, there's this famous tomato throwing game where you would just throw rotten tomatoes at each other for hours on end. And I'm still, to this day, I don't know how you actually win the game. All I know is that I do not like playing it at the start of the day, because throughout the end, you just smell like a big rotten tomato.
What do you most enjoy about it?
I really like the food. I love Italian pasta. A good plate of Italian pasta is one way to make me happy. So when you go to a festival and every single food stand is just pasta, 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 it's like I'm in Italy. So I definitely love that. But I also love engaging with my local community members and meeting new people, meeting people that I've already met before, and just connecting with so many people.
Do you think that festivals are important for a country?
Absolutely. Festivals are really important for a country, as they allow community members to engage with each other. As well as that, other people can learn about different cultures. It's a way that we can connect. It's a way that we can express who we are and really have some fun and enjoyment in our lives.
3. Questions about visitors. What would you suggest a visitor do or see in Australia?
If you're a visitor of Australia, I definitely recommend you see one of our beaches, whether that be all of them or just one. Melbourne has the famous St Kilda Beach, which is absolutely beautiful. I don't know if it's the sand or the water itself, but as a whole, it's absolutely beautiful. Bondi Beach in Sydney, that is a must-see. If you land in Australia, go to the beach, especially in summer when it's a scorching hot day. Besides that, we have great food, great coffee here in Melbourne especially. So if you do enter into Victoria, definitely check out our restaurant scene, especially Lygon Street. That's my favourite. But as well as that, we have fantastic shopping experiences on offer. So whether that be Chadstone, whether that be ones up in New South Wales, Perth, the Gold Coast, everything on offer from Australia is a definite must-see.
Are there any traditional arts or music you would recommend?
Traditional arts and music that I would recommend is probably our end of year Sydney My Music Bowl Christmas concert. That's held on the 24th of December, the night before Christmas, and that's broadcasted on one of our free-to-air channels. And pretty much what that festival does and what that whole arts scene does is allow for so many people to connect. And as well as that, local Australian artists actually perform at that event. So they're on stage performing for hours on end, all the favourite Christmas carols that we love to hear in our favourite festive season.
Tell me about some of the foreign visitors and tourists that visit Australia.
Absolutely. Ever since coronavirus has happened, though, it has been different, no doubt. So we haven't had an international visitor visit Australia since the start of the year. But as a whole, international visitors are important for our country as they allow us to not only show them our culture, but for them to show us theirs. I remember one time when I was down at Flinders Street and I was doing a promotion down there with a local company. I was engaging with so many members of the community, and a lot of them were international visitors. You know, we had people from France, we had people from Russia, we had people from Germany, Italy, America, and all those people just came up, and the biggest thing that I enjoyed was seeing their smiles on their faces as they enjoyed our city.
In what way has tourism changed in this country?
Tourism has definitely changed in this country for the better. But unfortunately, during the time of the coronavirus, Australia did close its borders. But as a whole, pre-COVID, it has definitely ramped up, I would say. A lot more people are visiting Australia because we are on the map. A lot of people are wanting to see our culture, see what's on offer, and maybe even see us ride a kangaroo to work.
4, questions about daily routine. What would you like to change about your daily routine?
One thing that I would love to change about my daily routine is getting some more sunlight on my skin, because I wake up very early. In fact, when it's still dark outside, and by the time that I get out, it's almost dark again. So I'm pretty much like a hermit crab, and I live and work inside. So if I could change anything, it would definitely to be getting some more vitamin D.
Are all your days the same?
Not all of my days are the same, and that's because I'm a journo. So what I do on a day-to-day basis can change rapidly, whether I'm reporting live, reporting in the studio, going to different towns and communities. It's always changing, and that's something that I really love.
Tell me about your typical weekday and your typical weekend.
My typical weekday consists of me pretty much working all day, and then when I come home, I try my best to make it to the gym before having dinner, of course. And then on the weekends, I love to spend time with my family and my friends, whether that is to go down to the beach or go down to our local shopping precincts, just whatever we can do together. That's always on my bucket list.
What is the balance of work, study, and free time in your normal day?
Well, at the moment, thanks to the coronavirus, well, I shouldn't say thank you, but study has been enabled to be conducted remotely. So that's been a great way of managing our study offline or online technically. But besides that, I'm pretty much working on a day-to-day basis, and then in my personal life, I'm trying to spend as much time as I can with my family and exercise and really just enjoy what life has to offer. And you know, I love traveling, I love going across the world, but I also love going across this beautiful country that we have here in Australia.
5, questions about dancing. Do you enjoy dancing?
I do enjoy dancing. I don't know if I'm good at it, but I do enjoy it.
Why do you enjoy it?
It's just a fantastic way to express yourself, express how happy you are, and if you're in a bad mood, dancing always makes you better most of the time.
Has anybody ever taught you to dance?
Nobody has actually ever taught me how to dance. If I was to thank anyone, it's only going to be the MTV Music Video Network, or my favourite artists over on YouTube.
Tell me about any traditional dancing in your country.
In this country, we have a lot of traditional dances. My favourite is the Nutbush, which is performed pretty much at every disco or pub, club, anything like that at some stage of the night. But because I'm an Italian, I do have an Italian background, my favourite cultural dance in this country is the tarantella. So the first time I've ever danced to that one, that was with my great-grandmother. And that's just such a special dance to me because It's just a way to connect with my culture, but also connect with family and friends and have a laugh and have a smile as I do so.
Do you think that traditional dancing will become more popular in future?
I do think that traditional dancing will become more popular in future because as our country evolves and more people come to our country, they also bring their traditional dances. Now, sometimes a person can bring their own dance to our country, and who knows, we might see new ones invented. So I definitely think it's gonna change for the better.
6. Questions about musical instruments. Which musical instrument do you enjoy listening to the most?
I have to say I really enjoy the drums and I also enjoy piano. So if I could say two, it would be those ones because they're completely different. If you're in the vibe to really bang your head to something and really get into a club beat mood, I would definitely say the drums are my favorite. But as well as that, the piano just brings a soft resonance into pretty much every song. So there's two styles and two different instruments for each style.
Have you ever learned to play a musical instrument?
I did try and learn to play an instrument. I actually started learning guitar many, many years ago, but I actually technically failed. So I just stuck with actually learning and developing my vocal skills. And to the side of things, I do actually do singing as well. So if you want to count that as an instrument, then definitely vocal is what I've learnt and what I've developed.
Do you think that children should learn to play an instrument while they're at school?
Absolutely, I do think that children should be learning an instrument when they're at school, and especially if they enjoy it and they're passionate to do so. It just allows them to explore new things in life. It allows them to find their passion, find their talents. So whether it be a piano, a drum kit, a guitar, singing, definitely start at a young age.
How easy would it be to learn to play an instrument without a teacher?
I think that depends on the person, whether it would be easy or not when, trying to teach yourself. But I suppose it just comes down to passion. When you're really passionate about something, you will strive to do the best that you can. And a lot of people, although they don't teach themselves with a teacher, they try and teach themselves with themselves. Now, what I mean by that is they will seek things that would help, like reading material, like videos and tutorials. So when you're really passionate about something, you don't always need to be taught. I think you just have to be driven.
7. Questions about traffic where you live. How do most people travel to work where you live?
Well, most people commute by either car or train. There's no in between. At the moment where I live, it's still a developing area, so you can't really get around on foot to very far. You'd actually have to you have to actually bus in or car in, or drive in, should I say, to the local train station. So if you want to commute to the city on a train, you'd have to actually drive yourself to the train station because it is a fair distance and I am still growing up in a developing area.
What traffic problems are in your area?
At the moment, there's a lot of roadwork problems and roadwork traffic problems in my area, and I think that is because it is a developing estate and developing suburb. For the better or for the worse, obviously we know in the back of our minds that it's only temporary and that it is going to get better in the future. But definitely the one thing that I would say that is a very big disruption to our commute and travel is roadworks.
How do traffic problems affect you?
Traffic affects me in a couple of different ways, but the most significant way is it makes me tired. When you're sitting in traffic all day, especially after a long day, the last thing you want to do is be waiting in slow moving traffic. So definitely getting tired and very car sick is definitely one way that it affects me. But as well as that, it's very time consuming. A lot of us are really time poor, and being stuck in traffic all day is probably the last thing that we'd want.
How would you reduce traffic problems in your area?
To reduce traffic problems in my area, I would definitely recommend people start using public transport more, whether that by using our train network or our bus network. It definitely just takes that traffic congestion off our roads. But as well as that, it's only kind of travel if you really have to. If you can walk to the local park because it is only a 5-minute walk or a 2-minute drive, choose to do that walk, because it's also a benefit because you're exercising and you're also taking an extra vehicle off the road.
8. Questions about your friends. Do you prefer to have one particular friend or a group of friends?
Well, over the years, I've taught myself that it's important to at least have one good friend. You don't have to have a lot of friends, but as long as you have one good friend in your life, I think that's what matters most. And as a teenager growing up, I ended up learning by year 12 that it's not who you hang around, or it's not the group that you hang around with, it's who you hang around with. And whether it's one person or 6 people, as long as at least one of them are good enough to be your best friend, or if you can call them when you need them, you can call them when you're sad. I think even if you've just got one friend, that's all that matters.
What do you like doing most with your friends?
I really like to travel with my friends. They're pretty much my travel companions, whether that be traveling around Australia or the world. That is definitely one thing that I love to do. But as well as that, we make the best shopping buddies ever. I think half of my wardrobe is only there because my friends have actually approved of what I've bought. So if I could choose the two, it would be them.
Do you think it's important to keep in contact with friends you had as a child?
It is important to stay connected with friends that you have had as a child, but it's not significant. And what I mean by that is if that friend is understanding and knows your situation in life, we're all busy, we all have a career, we all have things that we're doing. If you're making an effort with that person, at least maybe once a week, maybe once, it might be once a month, as long as you're caring and you're kind and you're making an effort with your friend and your friend does the same, I think that constant connection and constant communication is important, but it's not vital.
What makes a friend into a good friend?
One thing that makes a friend into a good friend is trust. And you can't have a friendship without trust, but you can't have a good friend without trust either. And what I mean is when you're down, who do you go to? You go to someone that you trust. When you have exciting news, you're probably going to share it first with someone that you trust. Any life experiences, hard, difficult, or exciting, you're going to share it with people that you trust. So one key thing with having a good friend and having and forming good relationships is forming trust.
9. Questions about keeping in contact with people. How do you usually contact your friends?
I usually keep in contact with my friends via social media. It's a growing platform, I guess, for a lot of young people these days. And it's a way that we can just all message a friend in under 10 seconds, really. How are you going? Hi, how was your day? And it's just become even easier to connect with family members as well, because everyone is so connected on these social media platforms. So I think the days of calling up a friend, I remember back many, many years ago, I would be on hours and hours worth of phone calls to friends. But now it's, we've got a group chat. We're messaging on Facebook, we're messaging on Snapchat through our group chats. And we're just all communicating with each other in different ways through these social media platforms. And I mean, Snapchat's a big one because although you're messaging, you're able to take a photo or video of where you are. So you're sharing experiences with your friends as well.
Do you prefer to contact different people in different ways?
I do prefer to contact different people in different ways because depending on the person is going to depend on how you can communicate with them. Now I'm going to take, for example, my 78-year-old grandfather. I probably can't communicate with him on Snapchat, although I think he does want to eventually get into the world of Snapchat. I just tell him that it costs too much money. Anyway, so it does depend on who you're wanting to connect with. Obviously with friends and family that are tech savvy, communicating via social media is probably the best way, I would say, to communicate. But then you've got grandpa, grandma, who maybe aren't as tech savvy, and a phone call is always probably one of the greatest gestures that you could do for them. But the old days of sending a good postcard, can't get away from that one either.
Do you find it easy to keep in contact with friends and family?
It depends on who I'm contacting and which family member I'm keeping in contact with. Majority of the time it is quite easy to stay in contact, but for example, a lot of my family actually live overseas and live in Italy, for example, and because of the time difference, it's hard to stay in communication with them, because you can only talk to them within so much of our day, because it's still daytime over there and all that stuff. So I think one complication with keeping in contact with families when they're overseas and when they're not actually in the country with you.
In your country, did people of the past communicate in the same ways they do today?
I think communication in Australia has definitely changed. I remember many years ago, especially when I was probably just starting school, we would communicate very differently to the way that we did today. And what I mean by that is, phone calls and text messaging probably used to be number one, as well as that postcards. I said before, postcards. I used to communicate with my cousin via postcards. But nowadays, as technology is developing and as we're getting more and more into the internet and technology, communicating with each other via social media platforms and online networks is probably going to it's going to grow even greater over the next 5-10 years to come.
What do you like about living in your hometown?
What I love about living in my own hometown is that it's a small town. At the moment, yes, I have moved away to the city, but my home will forever be in regional Victoria. And I didn't grow up in the biggest country town in the world. It's only got like 2,000 or 3,000 people, and everyone pretty much knows everyone. But because everyone knows everyone, you've got a lot of trust in the community. You can trust your neighbour. You can trust the guy 3 streets away, because everyone is so connected. Everyone is so just orientated in that family kind of way, even though you're not family.
What don't you like about living in your hometown?
The one thing that I don't like about living in my hometown is that it can get really hot during the summer. Because it's in regional Victoria, we're not as close to the ocean as we are, say, in the city. So definitely during, peak summer season, it does get quite hot down in my hometown.
This is part 2 of the IELTS test simulation. I will give you a task card for you to write some notes for 1 minute and then talk uninterrupted about that topic for 2 minutes. The question is, describe a meeting you remember going to at work, college, or school. You should say when and where the meeting was held, who was at the meeting, what the people at the meeting talked about, and explain why you remember going to this meeting. So here's your pen and paper just to take some notes.
Well, I remember going to a meeting as a school student, and it was with the leading principal team. And the reason why I went into that meeting is because I was being nominated for house captain. The meeting was held at our school, and because of the importance of becoming a school captain, is why I still remember it. And I remember who was there. It was me with the principal team, and it was other students within my year level as well. But as well as that, what I felt was a little bit intimidated. And the reason why I felt that way is because I was up against some big players. The popular sports jocks, or the popular musicians and all those kind of people. So I definitely remember feeling that intense intimidation. And what we spoke about was leadership, and how we would lead our school, how we would lead our pastoral groups, which is our student home groups. So that's the reason why and I would never forget being in that principal's office, staff room, area or room. But as well as that, the way it made my family feel that I was nominated for that captain role was something that I would never forget either. I remember coming home and I told my parents that I had been nominated for a leadership role, and they were just over the moon because obviously being the eldest in the family, it's a sense of pride, I guess, in your child that they are showing leadership. And to a school that has 300 students in the 1 year level, it was like, wow, I'm about to become a leader of a group that contains 300 or so people. And it was just like crazy, because who would have thought this little kid from, regional Victoria, this small little town, and I used to go to a school that's, 50 kilometers away from where I actually lived, and I was busing in every morning. Who would have thought that I could have, been nominated for that role? So I think that was something that was just so significant in my life. I remember it like it was yesterday. And because it has the principal there, I will never ever forget the way I also felt intimidated around him, because he's quite a stern man. He's a lovely man, but he's quite powerful of a principal.
Thank you for that. Now we'll move on to part 3. In part 3, I'm going to ask you some more specific questions about this topic. What are some of the different types of meetings that people often go to?
There are a lot of meetings people generally go to at one stage in their life, or many stages, shall I say, in their life. The biggest one, though, is work meetings. During any job, pretty much, you will be sat down in a meeting with other team members, your bosses, and maybe even colleagues from different groups or departments within your organization. So meetings at work is definitely a common one, but as well as that, as a student, being in meetings as a student is definitely popular, especially nowadays when you're going to a school that has, so many kids, 300 people just in 1 year level. So, school meetings, work meetings, but as well as that, even personal meetings. I find that a lot more people are holding personal meetings as opposed to, gatherings. They're holding meetings, whether it be at a local cafe, they're meeting up with family, they're meeting up with friends, they're meeting up with past colleagues for a coffee or for a discussion, or to discuss their ambitions, to discuss their career, to discuss where they want to get in life. That's another type of meeting that is becoming very popular, especially during this time of year.
Some people say no one likes to go to a meeting. What do you think?
Look, generally no one likes to go to a meeting, and the meeting that I hate the most is when you go to a job interview and it's in those group meetings. I always find them so scary. But when you're going to a meeting with, colleagues or family or friends, I think they're the most important thing in your day, because it allows you to connect with so many people that maybe you haven't before, or maybe you haven't seen in a long time. And friendship meetings, going for a coffee together and discussing your ambitions and your goals together. I think it's really important, and I wouldn't say that it's boring at all. I would actually say that it's quite enjoying. It's quite an enjoyment in my day to go and do that meeting. And at the moment, where I am today, me and my boss and one of my other colleagues have a meeting every day. 10 o'clock, we go to the cafe, we have brunch together. But it's not only a way that we can discuss work and connect over our work, but it's also a way that we can connect on a personal level as well and form a friendship, and really discuss our own lives and how we're coping in the workplace, and where we want to go, how we want to progress. So I think meetings is definitely an important thing in our lives.
Why can it sometimes be important to go to meetings?
It's important to go to meetings because it's important that you show that you're interested in attending the topic, I guess, that you're going to attend for. So whether it be for a work meeting, it's important that you go to show that you're driven, that you're motivated, and you are a team member that is a team member. There's no I in team, and participating in a team meeting, which is basically a discussion. You're only sharing ideas most of the time. It's important that you're there, you're present, you're sharing those ideas that are formulating within yourself. But as well as that, on a personal level, when you're connecting with family and friends over a personal meeting, that's also important as well, because you're connecting back with people that you might not have seen for a very long time.
On international meetings, why do you think world leaders often have meetings together?
I think that world leaders often have meetings together to discuss, you know, relationships between countries. And I think it's really important as well because we need, as a country, we need to have strong, healthy relationships with other countries, such as the United States, such as the UK, and such as China as well, because they are our biggest partners when it comes to trade. So having regular meetings with leaders of those countries, with our leaders having meetings with those countries, I think it's the most important thing ever, because it allows those relationships to form and it allows our economy and our nation to grow. Because, you know, you could be little old Bobby who lives in the farming regions, but you might not know that your Prime Minister is having this massive meeting with the Prime Minister of China or Japan to discuss, you know, some trade deals that could benefit you and your family.
What possible difficulties might be involved in organising meetings with world leaders?
I think one of the biggest difficulties when organising meetings with world leaders, there's two things that jump out at me, and that's language barriers. Generally nowadays, though, they do have translators, and I don't think it's the biggest difficulty of all, but time differences and time zones can really strain when and how meetings can be formed. Over the COVID period, we saw a lot of meetings go online. You know, leaders were meeting over Zoom calls. So I think that kind of made it a little bit easier. But the traditional way of when leaders are traveling to our country, to each other's countries, I do hope that I see that return, but I don't think we're going to see it much as of yet.
Do you think that meetings between international leaders will become more frequent, or will there be less need for the world leaders to meet?
I think that as the economy, the global economy grows, definitely there will be more meetings held between world leaders. And I think it's important because it allows each country to form relationships with each other and build their economies, but the global economy as well. And, you know, as population grows, as our sectors and industries grow, it's very important for our leaders of each country to be having regular meetings with each other.
That concludes our IELTS test simulation for today. I'm Tennille. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Anthony, for joining us as well.
Thank you very much for having me.